Today I'm going to show you how you can save a little bit of money and do your own oil change right in your driveway. So stick around and check this one out. Today's video is sponsored by Quaker State Oil, and today we're going to be using their brand new Ultimate Durability Full Synthetic Motor Oil. And right now at AutoZone, you can get a 5-gallon jug of oil and an STP Extended Life oil filter for $27.99 plus taxes and fees. And that special is running until the end of 2020, so make sure to get to your local AutoZone and stock up while you still can get the special. So for some people, I can understand that doing your own oil change can be kind of intimidating, especially if you don't know anything about cars. But today I'm going to hopefully try to make it a little simpler for you so you can do it yourself and save a little bit of money. First, you're going to want to get your car pulled in. I would highly suggest using ramps versus a jack and jack stands, just because it's so much safer and it's a lot easier and faster. So just pull up to the stops and put it in park. It's also not a bad idea to go ahead and pull the parking brake. Next, you're going to want to get a couple wheel chalks and chalk your wheels. That way you know your car is not going to roll anywhere while you're underneath it. Now you're going to want to get inside your car and locate your hood release. It's normally down by your left foot in the driver's seat. And now just slide over the hood latch and open the hood right up. So with that being said, let's get right into it and see what tools we're going to need to complete this oil change. So I've laid out everything here that you will need to do most of all oil changes. Obviously, first of all, you're going to need some oil, filter, and then it's not a bad idea to pick up a can of brake clean while you're at the auto parts store. AutoZone normally has very good prices on fluids, so that's not a bad place to pick it up. You're going to want a set of disposable gloves to keep your hands clean and oil free, some rags, whether they be cloth or paper, a flashlight, and then basically a basic tool set. You know, a ratchet, some sockets, maybe a universal joint depending on what type of oil filter you have, some wrenches, and then possibly an assortment of extensions depending on what you got. Now this is a bonus. You don't have to have a torque wrench, but tighten up drain plugs and oil filters that have plastic housings, it's a really good idea to have one. And then these are all items to get oil filters off. These are oil filter sockets, and we're actually going to use these today on my vehicle I'm doing the oil change on. They're very common on cars now, so I'll show you what these are all about. Or you could have to have a different assortment of wrenches, whether it be a band wrench or this is a special Toyota oil filter socket. It all depends on what car you have, so just research that beforehand. And then it's always a good idea to check your tire pressures when you're doing an oil change. You don't have to have a fancy gauge like this. Just a little cheap gauge will do the trick, no problem. Also, another bonus is to have a creeper, and then you have to have a drain pan. I personally prefer this style of drain pan that is fully enclosed and you can put screws in to seal it completely up, and then it has a spout to easily drain it. Draining your oil into this type of drain pan makes it very easy to take it to your local AutoZone store and they will drain it for you there. And then you can pick up some fresh oil for your next oil change while you're there. The first thing I like to do when opening up the hood is take the oil fill cap off and put it in the hood latch. That makes it to where the hood will not shut and you'll remember to put the cap on when you're done. Next thing I like to do is just visually inspect all your fluids and make sure none of them are low. Your brake fluid should not be low unless if your pads are worn or you have a leak. So no need to top that off. Any other fluid that may be low, you may need to take it to a shop to have them inspect for leaks, or if it's just a little low, top it off with an OEM approved fluid for that system. The next thing you'll have to do on most vehicles is figure out how to take the engine cover off if that is a required step. In this case, I have to take the engine cover off to access the oil filter. And on this vehicle, it's as easy as just pulling it straight up. And it just has two rubber grommets that grab onto the top of the engine. Now on this vehicle, the oil filter is actually right here on top, which makes it very easy to change the oil filter. This is where the oil filter sockets will come into play. This takes a 32 millimeter low profile oil filter socket, and they have to be low profile to fit down underneath the intake right here. My preferred method to take this oil filter off is the oil filter socket, a swivel, and an extension. Put that on the end of the ratchet and break it loose. At this point, I like to just pull the oil filter cap up and just let it drain down so the oil can drain out of the filter before I take it up and make a mess. For the next step, we're gonna have to put our drain pan under the car, and then you're gonna need to find where your drain plug is at and find the appropriate tool to break it loose. In this case, it's a 15mm wrench. Sometimes I find that hitting the wrench makes it easy to break it loose. Move your drain pan into place, and at this point it's a good idea to put a glove on so the oil doesn't get all over your hand. And if you're using a drain pan like this, you can just spin the plug and let it fall into the pan. I like to pick my plug back up and set it aside. Make sure before you drain your oil that the pan is pushed far enough back to where you're not going to make a big mess. And now at this point, I just let the oil drain while I'm working back up top. While your oil is draining underneath your car, right now is a good time to go around and check all your tire pressures. If you don't know what your tire pressure is supposed to be, on most cars in the driver door jamb, you can find a sticker that'll look like this, and it will tell you the pressure that your tires are supposed to be at. And don't forget to check your spare tire either and make sure it's inflated and in good condition in case you have a breakdown. Now that I got my oil drained and my tires inflated, I'm gonna go ahead and change the oil filter out. Now I've already pulled it up, like I said, to where it can drain down and not drip as bad. So here it is. Now this is a canister style oil filter, and your car may not have an oil filter like this. It may be a regular oil filter that screws in up underneath, but the principle behind everything is the same. You're gonna take it out and replace it. Obviously this is easy to get to because it's up top, but if you're underneath, you just have to do it from the bottom. Now on these style oil filters, they normally will come with a new filter, obviously, and a new O-ring. I've found that the easiest way to get the O-rings off is just a little screwdriver and just walk it right off. And then to put it back on, it's just the opposite. Just roll it down, make sure you don't cut it or slice it, and make sure it's sitting right in the groove where it's supposed to be. It's also not a bad idea just to maybe try to stick your finger down in here and get a little bit of oil and run it right along that O-ring. And then on most of these, the filters will actually snap right into place and they'll be in the canister ready to put back in. And this is where a torque wrench comes in handy. And most of the time, the oil filter cap will actually have the torque spec written right on top of it, and this one does, so it made it nice and easy to get the correct spec. I picked that torque wrench up for $10, so you can find torque wrenches for very cheap that will work for easy stuff like this. But if you don't have one, it's not the end of the world. Just get it just past snug. You don't have to go crazy on it. It's just a plastic cap. Now that we got our oil filter tightened down, I'm gonna go ahead and put my plastic cover back on. So we got all that done. We got the tires aired up. The oil's been draining for at least 5 or 10 minutes. So I think it's ready to go ahead and put that plug back in. It's just barely dripping now, so we're gonna go ahead and put this plug back in. Now some plugs do have gaskets you have to replace. If your plug has an aluminum crush gasket on it, make sure you replace it every time you do your oil change. In my case, no gasket has to be replaced. I would highly suggest using a torque wrench at this point. That way you don't over torque your drain plug and strip out your oil pan. At this point, I'd recommend getting your brake clean and just kind of getting any of the residual oil off that might still be left over. Luckily, I didn't make a big mess on this one, but depending on what engine you have, your results may vary. Now that we got our drain plug torqued, our oil filter torqued, now we can add our engine oil. I would highly recommend using full synthetic oil in any car you have. It operates better in low temperatures and high temperatures and all the way across the board, and it is less prone to sludge and oxidation over time. So all the myths that you've heard about not being able to use synthetic oil in older vehicles, throw those out the window. It's not going to cause any issues. It's not going to cause any leaks. It's going to help your engine, whether it's an older engine or whether it's the newest, latest, and greatest vehicle on the road. This Quaker State oil is going to do the trick no matter what. Now this is the point where you're going to have to figure out how much oil your engine takes. And luckily that's very easy to do. All you got to do is get out your car's owner manual and look it up. It'll be right in there. Another thing you want to make sure is verify what weight of oil your car takes. This one clearly states it on the cap, 5W30. And obviously this is 5W30. Now a quick little DIY hack I got here is to take a gallon jug like this, you know, a gallon jug of washer fluid or whatever that you may have used to fill up your washer fluid, and cut the top off. And now you have a funnel with a handle and a drain to put your funnel in when you're done. So with this setup, you can grab the funnel just like this and then easily dump the oil into the engine. Now with my engine, it holds exactly 5 quarts, so it makes it super easy, and I just dump the whole jug in. Then you can get your little jug you made and put it right in, and you're good to go. And at this point, you're going to want to put your oil fill cap back on and make sure it's securely on there and not cockeyed in any way. All right, so we've got all the hard part done. It's all ready to go. Next thing we got to do is start up the engine and then check the oil level. All right, and while your engine is running after you start it up, you're going to want to back it off the ramps that we pulled up to originally and get it on flat level ground so you can easily check your oil. You're going to want to let your car set for about a minute or two just to let the oil set back down. Then you're going to pull your dipstick out. I like to kind of just wipe it off. Make sure there's no gunk or sludge on it. That's also a pretty good telltale sign of what your engine looks like on the inside. And obviously here we can see that it's nice and clean and no sludge. This is my personal vehicle, and you know, I take care of it very well, so the engine is in good shape and nice and clean. So once you get that all cleaned up, you're going to want to put the dipstick back down in, make sure it's fully seated, and then you're going to want to pull it back out and verify that you have the correct oil level. And in this case, it looks like we're dead on. Now the last step, which is only going to apply for newer cars, is going to be to reset your oil life. Now on this car, you just cycle through the display until you get to oil life, and then you hold both these buttons until it comes up. Oil life reset, and then you hold the arrow and it resets it. And it's as easy as that. Now you'll have to look up how to do it on your car if it has an oil life monitor, but that can easily be found online. It's very readily available information, and it's normally pretty easy to do. Another little quick tip for you guys is I like to reset my trip A while I do an oil change. That way I know exactly how many miles it's been on that oil change. It kind of makes it a little bit easier, and you might not have to do an oil change sticker up in your window up here. So that's just an easy tip. You know, reset your tripometer, and then you'll know exactly how many miles you went on that oil change. If you're not very mechanically inclined and you don't know a lot about cars, but you still want to do your own oil changes, by all means, go ahead. But if you are that type of person, please make sure to take your car to a certified mechanic at least once a year and pay them to do a thorough inspection on it, just so you can keep up if there's anything wrong with your vehicle. Obviously, doing your own oil changes will save you a lot of money, but you might not have the right experience and knowledge to know exactly what your car needs. So make sure you're taking it in for at least regular inspections. So that's how you do your own oil change at your house, in your driveway. It's super simple and very easy. Pretty much anyone can do it. I just want to give another quick thanks to Quaker State Oil for sponsoring this video. And thanks for watching, and have a great day.